morning, and a very warm welcome to Spark, Shift, and Succeed, brought to you by Unique Speaker Bureau International. I am Melissa Tsodetse, and I'm your host. Whatever time it may be for you, thank you for choosing this time to invest in your growth, your mindset, and your leadership journey. At Unique Speaker Bureau International, we believe that transformation begins with a spark, a single moment, a powerful idea, a shift in perspective that moves you from where you are to where you're meant to be. Today's session is designed to ignite that spark within each of you. Let me start off by saying this. What if one of the most powerful leadership tools available to us is something far more human, something deeply personal, something that starts from within? Today we explore a rather bold perspective, the power of loving your way to the top, presented by the one and only Maria Romano. Maria Romano is a dynamic speaker, entrepreneur, and former president of a multi-million-dollar car rental company in Las Vegas, where she led over 120 employees and $17 million in annual sales. After selling the business, she became an ordained minister, officiating over 7,000 weddings. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way. Today, Maria blends business strategy with emotional intelligence to train leaders and frontline teams across industries. Her signature talks focus on influence, empathy, and connection as powerful tools for cultivating change and driving results. Maria's mission is straightforward: to help organizations lead with heart and transform everyday interactions into extraordinary outcomes. Please join me in welcoming the incredible Maria Romano as she presents the power of loving your way to the top. Maria, the virtual stage is yours.
Good morning, everybody, and I hope everyone is doing well today. I'm so excited to be here with all of you, and I hope you have your coffee, your water, whatever you're drinking, your matcha. Like I was just sharing, I have my adult beverage sippy cup with water in it, just in case we don't want anything to fall over. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the presentation, but a couple of things when we start. I'm going to probably ask you, if you can, I might ask you to put certain things in the chat just because I want to know you're here. I just don't like to talk for the whole 20 minutes. I probably will, but I also want to engage you as well, and I want to wake you up. All right, are we ready? Are we ready to have a little fun? Are we ready to learn something new and hear about the power of loving your way to the top? Maybe one in the chat saying yes, or two, I'm still checked out, I'm waking up, okay? One or the other. All right, let's get this show going. Make sure that everybody can see my slides. You can see them all, correct? Yes, no, perfect. And okay, now we're having a problem again with the presenter. So one moment, please. We had this issue a few minutes ago, and I want to make sure that this is going to work properly. So let's go back to this way. Let's go back to here. And let's see if it'll work like this. Nope. Doesn't make any sense on why.
We can see your slide, if that helps.
Yeah, but it's not moving. And
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that, and it was on, but I just now took out. All right. We just had this all set up beautifully. So just give me a second. Let's try this again.
And just while Maria's doing that. Oh,
pardon?
I was just going to say, Maria, just while you're doing that, I'll just chat to our audience to sort of say, I don't know how much research they've done with you, but Maria herself ran very successful business. Sort of turnover was around $17 million annually. Had quite a big team to look after and support, and felt she got a lot more out of everybody by just bringing everybody together. Team building was very, very strong on team building. Looks like you're getting something now, Maria.
Well, let me just see if it'll work this way. No, for some reason, this is not moving for me, and I don't know why. We just had it. So,
Maria, sometimes it's just good enough to chat to you, and we'd be very happy to get some of your insights and just see,
that's fine.
And
Yeah,
I
I've
can
just
also encourage questions in the group as well, and you can maybe answer some of those too. But maybe give us a short run through of what you were planning this morning.
That's definitely will do. You know what? Let's talk about the power of loving your way to the top. So last month, I was watching the Golden Globes, and Tiana Taylor, during her acceptance speech, said 7 powerful words that really stopped me cold. And she said, "Love is action, not just another word." And you know, that one sentence really sets apart why some people rise and others remain stuck, even though they work just as hard. And that's because, love is not just a feeling. Love is action. Love is how you lead. Love is the standards you set. It's the actions you take, even when no one is watching. And that's how you know you're already leading. Because when pressure hits, people watch you. They watch your tone, they watch your decisions, they watch what you'll tolerate. And whether you realize it or not, your behavior sets the example. That's leadership. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to do more work, more hours, more grind. No. The power of loving your way to the top is about you becoming more. And becoming more only happens under pressure. A family member gets sick and you have to step in. A team member disappears and you're the one to pick up the slack. Or you've been asked to take on a leadership role and you don't feel you're quite ready. And moments like this don't create who you are, they reveal your character. And you see, I know this firsthand because, my late husband and I, Frank, we owned a car rental company, which you heard. And I used to handle what I call the front end of the business. And that was hiring of the team, the marketing, right, the sales. And Frank handled what I call the back end, the accounting, the legal, and the acquisitions of our lines of credit. And Frank, unfortunately, in June of 1997, had a major heart attack. And he had a long recovery, and I was beside myself because I had 2 choices. I could either close the company, and that would have been disastrous, or I had to step in and take on a leadership role. And let me tell you, I didn't think I was ready. I didn't think I could do it. My team didn't know if I can do it, as well as our creditors and our clients. But guess what? I stepped in, I took charge. And even though everything didn't go as planned, I made mistakes, there were things that went well, I managed to go through this, and we held on. Frank recovered. He had a heart transplant. He never fully came back to work. So I was the one that had to lead the company. And let me tell you, I learned so many different things, especially stepping into leadership roles. And in 2010, we sold the company. And the reason I share this with you is because these are moments where our characters really are revealed when we step in. And that's when we grow. And that's what it's about, rising to the top and the power of loving your way to the top. And today, what I want to share with you is why love is not just a sentiment, why love is very important when it comes to your actions, how you develop your skills, and in the workplace. And I have a framework that I'm going to share with you. And even though you can't see my slides, we can pretend that you are. The framework is we have 3 areas. It's influence, leadership, and relationships. And we're going to cover just that. And the reason we're going to cover that is because influence determines if people are going to lean in and listen to you. Leadership is whether you're able to handle the chaos or be stable. And then, of course, your relationships are areas that you need to develop in your professional life so you have sustainability with your team, with your clients, and also in your personal life. And everything I'm going to share with you today is not just for the professional world, it's also for your personal world too. So let's start with influence. Now, why do you need influence? Well, believe it or not, if you want to move people, if you want people to do what you say and you're leading people, you want them to trust you, but they have to feel that they can trust you. And influence today is really the new way of leadership. We think of influence as somebody that's out there with their phones, right? And they're influencing you on the different social media sites. Or we think of influence as somebody that is trying to coerce you into buying something. But true leaders learn how to communicate well, and influence is part of the skill sets. Now, these skill sets you're not born with. These are skill sets. It's like a muscle. It's a practice. But influence also does not come from power. It comes from your presence. And your presence is what captures people. And how present you are by making people feel seen, heard, and valued. There was a study done by Vanessa Van Edwards' company called The Science of People. And have you ever been to the doctors, right? We go to doctors, correct? We go to them for medical advice, whether we like them or not. And this study that was done was interesting. They recorded different physicians. They had them just state their name and their profession. And then they shared these recordings with their researchers, the people that they sought out. And what was very interesting when they got this back is, of course, you had the doctors that the researchers rated very high. They felt their voice was warm. Their tone was just something that they felt warm and they can trust them. They had what they would call a great bedside manner, even though they couldn't see them. And yet there was the other half of some of these doctors where their research, when it came back, they scored low because they said that they felt that their tone and their voice, they didn't trust them. So when they unpacked this a little bit more, they found out that those doctors that scored low in the research because of their voice, they didn't feel comfortable, they had a higher number of malpractice cases. And they were just as skilled as the other doctors. So there are two things you need when you're going to develop influence. You need to make sure, just from this study, that you have warmth and competence. And how do you do that? When you meet people. When you meet people, being truly present, that is the key thing. And really being interested in who they are, not who you are, who they are. And that's the key thing in influence. And that's why you need to have influence in your life, especially when you're going to be leading people. And, whether you're leading a team, whether you're an entrepreneur, where you're working within a company, maybe you're an entrepreneur, you're working with vendors, you don't have actual people, quote, working for you. And even if you're leading the people in your home, in your personal life, as well as in your community. So the skill set you need is that warmth and competence, because what that does is competence earns respect, warmth earns trust, and influence happens when people feel both. And one thing to remember when it comes to influence, the most influential people in the world aren't trying to be interesting. They're interested in who you are. So the first skill in the power of loving your way to the top is influence. And then from influence, because again, you need the skill set in order to start building your skill sets to become a great leader, we're going to move on to leadership. Okay. Now, when I say the word leadership, when you hear the word leadership, what comes to your mind? Just think about that for a moment. Do you think of somebody that's a great leader? Somebody that you know? Do you think of yourself as a great leader? So leadership comes in all shapes and sizes, all ages, okay? And leadership, again, is a skill set. But I have a question. Have you ever had a bad boss or a bad leader in your life? Somebody that really stuck out? And when you've had that experience, it doesn't leave you feeling great. So what happens is sometimes people are what we call power blind. They don't have the skill sets. They could be good people, but they don't know how to lead. Have you ever had somebody that micromanaged you? That their communication, they had communication issues? We all have, right? Somebody that shifts the blame to you and takes credit for everything you've done? Maybe somebody that stunts your career or creates fear. See, that's the leadership skills you don't want. But now I have a question. Have you yourself ever demonstrated these skills? Because maybe you didn't know any better. You just weren't aware. It's because of the people that we emulate. I can tell you that when I was going through my trials of leading, not saying all of this, there were times I made mistakes. But you know what? When you do, again, hopefully you learn and you create a better version of you. But, there's a beautiful saying, and again, I'm sorry about that we can't manipulate the slides. They were working great a few minutes ago. There's a saying that I love by Simon Sinek about leadership. Leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. So I don't know how many of you have ever heard that, but that to me is like exemplifies what leadership is all about. So raise your hands if any of you are parents or grandparents, right? Raise your hand if I can see some of you. Great. And when you decided to be a parent, right? You said, I want to be a parent. Of course, you had a partner, hopefully. That's and or maybe you adopted a child. Now, having a child is one thing, but raising a child is a whole different ballgame. That's similar to leadership. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. So how do you do that? How do you take care of those in your charge? Well, there was a researcher by the name of Kim Anderson, and she was getting her leadership PhD at Harvard Business School. So what she did is she surveyed 7 area Boston hospitals, and she surveyed all the nursing departments. And she wanted scores on how they rated their leadership. So when they got back all this information, it was really interesting, is the nurses that scored the highest in leadership, there was another correlation. They also scored the highest in the number of reported incidents for their department. And when they dug a little further, they found out that those people within those teams felt psychologically safe, that their leaders had their back, that they can trust them, that they wouldn't call them out, because they were demonstrating that they were taking care of those in their charge and providing them with psychological safety. And psychological safety is one of the key things when you're leading your people. You need to make them feel safe. You need to make them feel safe so that they can be seen and heard. And they would sit down and they would share what went right with their department and what didn't go well. And as a team, everybody would contribute and come to resolutions on how to not have that happen again. So that's the key thing with leadership. Leadership is not about being the most powerful person, the most boisterous. It's about taking care of those in your charge and making sure that the people in your charge have the right tools to succeed. Because when people feel that they are in the right work environment, they can perform, they can share what they feel might work and might not work, and also you're helping them rise. Because leaders are creating a vision. You're trying to get them to move in a direction with the vision. So for example, let's say you're running a team and you have a sales goal. You all have sales goals, right? And your leader is going to share with you that vision. That's because your leader needs to have good influential skills and good leadership skills. And when they share that vision, what happens is is that vision then your team takes that and acts on that. So a great leader inspires you to take action, and a great leader then aspires you so that the people then go out and put forth the action. So those are the key things when it comes to leadership. And you know what? People don't follow titles, they follow energy. And when a leader has great energy, no matter what happens, they'll follow them. So those are the key components when it comes to leadership. And that creates strong teams. So we covered a bit of influence, we covered a bit of leadership, and I'm going to just touch on relationships, because you're building relationships with the people you work, you're building relationships with your client, and of course you have your own personal relationships. Now, relationships are important, and you want relationships that I call that have legs, sustainability. Sustainability is a big buzzword today about how we're sustaining the earth, but you want to sustain your relationships as well. And one of the ways that you can start is raise your hand if you go to networking groups, right? Right. And how many times you meet somebody new and right away they tell you who they are and they give you their resume. Do you like that all the time? Heck no. So connection starts when the pitch stops. So when you meet people, and that goes back to influence, being interested in them, the moment you stop selling is when people start leaning in. And that's the first thing when you're going to start building relationships, especially in your professional life. And even when you meet somebody that you really think you want to share with them what your services are or your products are, when you go to a networking event, just get their card, chat with them a moment and say, I'd love to be able to meet with you at another time when it's convenient, because we're all there to meet people. Don't give them your full resume, and just tell them you'd like to get to chat with them and find out about what they do. Maybe they can help you, maybe you can help them. But start off with that. And then the next thing that you need to understand is when you do go and meet with those people to build those relationships, when you're sitting down, make sure you're fully present. Your presence is your present. Your presence is your present. And that means phone put away, laptop put away, and undivided attention. Have you ever been in a meeting or met somebody new, or you're trying to share maybe your product or services and somebody's looking at their phone or watch? How do you feel? Right. You feel like you're not important. But make sure you make people feel that they're important, even if they're not giving you that courtesy. That's how you start to build relationships. But there's one more thing. Sometimes relationships, we have conflict. Whether you're leading teams, sometimes we all have conflicts in teams, right? And we also might have conflicts with even some of our clients. And what happens when you don't address something that needs to be addressed? It escalates, doesn't it? It festers, it becomes larger. And it's important that you develop and have dialogue. Let's start with just the people you work with, because avoiding the conflict doesn't make it better, and it doesn't make a situation go away. And that's what happens is that's unhealthy conflict, because then that's where something festers and blows up and it just doesn't turn out great. But when you have healthy conflict and you address situations, let's talk about just in your workplace, what happens is you have dialogue and you work your way through it. So for example, let's just say you have a team member that's constantly missing their deadlines, and you're the leader and other people keep bringing this up and you keep putting it aside. They resent that. But when you take action, when you take action and say, okay, I as a leader, I have a responsibility. What you do is you address it with the person that you have that issue with. So if you sit down with them, you address what we call the white elephant in the room. Okay, so you sit down with that person privately, unless you have to have HR involved. You identify whatever the issue is and you listen to them. From there, own your part in it also, because there might be something that you didn't clarify, or they thought you wanted you to work on something else, and that's why they kept missing a deadline. So own your part. Okay, address the situation and then agree on the next standard. So this is just a simple framework to have hard conversations because they are uncomfortable, but you need to address them. I learned this because after we sold our car rental company, I got to work with the Clark County Neighborhood Justice Center for the county and actually mediate, because who likes conflict? Like, nobody does. But when you learn to approach it in a professional manner, in a controlled manner where you're regulating your emotions and you sit down with the other person, you talk it through, you identify what the issue is, you agree on the next standard, and always acknowledge that person, especially if they're on your team, and tell them that they're an important part of the company, of your success and their success. And that's why you want to see them succeed. One of the worst things you can do is tell somebody, if you don't succeed, you're gone. So these are things that just simple ways to grow and improve your relationships. And when you do that, as you know yourself, maybe in your own personal life, whenever you've had something maybe go on with you and your partner, and finally it came to a head and you discussed it, what happens is your relationship became stronger. The same thing happens in your professional life. And you can use the same format even with clients, because sometimes clients can be a little trying, unless you have fabulous clients. I don't know, but that can happen. So that's a little bit about influence, leadership, and relationships. And the one more thing I want to just share with you that's very important, because we're talking about the power of loving your way to the top. The most important relationship you have is with yourself. With yourself. And I want you to think about for a moment how many roles you actually have in your life. Are you a parent? Are you a father, mother, grandparent, aunt, uncle? You're the person that shops in the home. You're the person that cooks. You're the person that runs your teams. The person that goes out and, acquiring new clients, building up new business. What's your responsibilities? And when you start to list all your roles, learn to say no sooner. And the reason I say that, because you need to only commit to things that align with your value. Because we try to be all things to all people. And what happens is we overcommit and we become overwhelmed. We can't do it all. So when you learn to understand that the most important person in this whole thing is you, is to make sure that you take care of yourself by setting those boundaries. And if there's something I'd like to close, it's very important, because here's what I know. You don't rise when things are easy. You rise when pressure asks more of you. That's because when you recognize love is not a feeling, love is action. Love is the standards you hold. It's the actions you take and the behavior that you model. That's how you influence. That's how you lead. That's how relationships are built and sustained. And that's the power of loving your way to the top.
Maria, thank you so much for that. It was such a grounding and thought-provoking session. You shared a lot of pearls with us. And your closing words, the most powerful relationship you have is with yourself. And I think we can all deeply resonate with that. Maria, thank you again for a wonderful session. Extremely insightful. You also said that influential leaders focus on others. And the quote you shared sticks with me. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. And within your talk, you reminded us that leadership is about why you do what you do and the value you create beyond the transaction. And there are so many buzzwords and perspectives associated with leadership: empathy, strategy, and vision. But essentially, as you put it, A leader is someone that takes care of others, and that is how you love your way to the top. Thank you for sharing those pearls of wisdom. We do have a minute or two. We're running slightly over, but we do have a minute or two to take any questions. Does anyone have anything to share with Maria, comment or a question? Very welcome to unmute your microphone and share with us.
Yeah, see, Nikki has the hand raised, or somebody does.
Nikki, would you love to jump in?
Sorry, that's a mistake. I'm not sure how that happened.
Yeah. Well,
But
I
I really
apologize.
appreciated your session, Maria. It was such a great way to start a Monday. Thank you.
Well, you know what? We were working with the PowerPoint. It worked well. I don't know why when I'm on someone else's Zoom, my PowerPoint does not want to work. So I'll figure that out the next time because the visuals are better. But you know what? It's okay. I know that the words at least resonated by just what Melissa said as well.
Thank you,
Awesome,
Maria.
It really was. Without the slides, you made it work. It was very intimate, a really great experience. Thank you.
Well, and I always welcome feedback from anyone, whether you think of it now or later on. I would like to, hear from you because this is just a little bit of an excerpt. I usually have people get up. We do sort of like an influence type of activity and a couple of other things. So it's not just limited to virtual, obviously. And I had to cut this down because usually it's well over an hour. So I had to condense it.
Thank you, Maria. It was absolutely perfect. When I'm looking at the chat, a few people loved I want to say pearls, but I think you dropped a few bombs on us. Clive said, love this. Connection starts when the pitching stops. I absolutely love that because we spend so many times in meetings, engaging with people, and we need to feel the connection beyond the pitch. So I resonate with that quote. Paul shared presence, the present gift to the person you are meeting. That's all about influence. What a great session this morning, Maria. This world could do with a bit more love in it. I love that. It goes with the theme of February. It goes with the theme of leading with love and loving your way to the top. It's a great way to start a Monday. Nikki, thank you very much for that comment. I do have a few questions myself, but I will reserve it for now, and I'll probably drop it to you, Maria. I know we can catch you on LinkedIn, and we can also catch you through the USBI site where we can engage more with you. And for any bookings, please do reach out to ourselves here at Unique Speaker Bureau International. And to our audience, thank you so much for joining us. To everyone who joined us today, we encourage you to carry one idea forward and put it into action. Growth begins the moment we decide to shift something within ourselves. Maria, thank you so much once again for your wisdom and your generosity. And to our audience, keep sparking, keep shifting, and keep succeeding. We'll catch you again next week, Monday at 9 a.m. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.